everyone. You are listening to Life in Full Send, Athletes Reimagined, the podcast for athletes navigating life after sports. I am your host, Liz Hall, and I believe deeply that who you are is so much more than what you do on the court, field, ice, or track. Today, I am beyond stoked to welcome a true pathfinder, one of those rare humans whose shattered ceilings in the NBA, produced Grammy-nominated beats, authored multiple books, and turned humanitarianism into a full-time hustle. And lockdown defender who had the whole campus buzzing at the time. Fast forward to today, and here's the man who is redefining what it means to live a life of purpose. Moe Ager, welcome to the mic. What an absolute honor to have you here, my friend. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the warm intro, and I appreciate all of the love. It's all appreciated on his end, for sure.
You're the best. Speaking on transitions, because that's really what we're up to. Everyone experiences them differently because each of them present their own challenges, right? So was for you high school to college, college to the NBA, or NBA out of sports, the harder transition for you, and why?
I would say out of sports, for sure, just because everything that surrounded the actual transition from it. Because once again, like when you're playing sports for, 15, 20 plus years, that's pretty much the MO that you've developed for yourself. And that's how other people view you as well. So, your whole world pretty much changed once you decide to walk away from sports in general, because once again, everything is surrounded by, what you show up as an athlete. You dig? And so I would say the transition itself was rather smooth in many ways because it was a choice. It wasn't necessarily something that I was forced to do. It was something that I was like, it was always on my heart to move on and do other things in life. So, but I would say socially it was difficult. Certain expectations for myself changed from certain people that were very instrumental and pivotal in my life. They began to, we just, went our separate ways, because obviously when you're playing sports, these are the common grounds where you guys, build relationships and stuff like that. So it's like a lot of players and people in general, not only in sports, once they kind of leave themselves away from a certain group of individuals who, pretty much came up together in this certain component, they go their separate way, and people take it personal because it's like, oh, they ain't messing with me no more, because, well, the things that brought you guys together is no longer there. So, dealing with the early stages of that was difficult. But all in all, it was still peaceful because I felt like it was a relief, because, I felt a great deal of liberation to kind of do something new and different in life.
And you moved into music, and we'll get to that. It's so interesting that you bring that up because, first off, we're friends anyways. So we talk about synchronicities and parallels. I just finished the Mel Robbins book, Let Them, and she talks about friendships and how there are kind of prerequisites to having a friend at the time. And you're going in the same direction. You're up to the same things in life. For instance, maybe parent friends, because they're raising kids. So they have that commonality. But we think it's as easy in adulthood to find friends like it is when we're kids or when we're part of an organization. And it's not. It's so much more challenging to find friends as adults because we're kind of structuring ourselves after sports and after school. So it's us navigating those friendships. So thanks for speaking into that, because it is, for in your case, a brotherhood, right? Of, you have this common goal. So to not share that immediately once you come out is challenging. When you were going through it, who was around, or did anybody know that you were going through that transition and release and really deaths of self, of those parts of you and of those relationships that you had built?
I feel like every year more and more people dropped off for the most part, just because after I left, it was still kind of like, he's not serious about it, so certain people was kind of linger around and kind of, still play a part in my life. But once they realized that I was actually serious about my next move and transition, every year people dropped off until even all the way up until this point, that happened. That was pretty much it. My last NBA game was in 2010. I would say, certain friends were around. I would say it was a very small group of individuals who actually was rocking with whatever I was doing in life. And those are the people I'm still, in contact with today. But all in all, it was a gradual process. It just wasn't something that just happened, instantly. But, but once, like I said, when people found out I was actually serious about my next phase of my life, that's when I started to hear people kind of talking crazy behind my back, and just, I understand it. I get it, but once again, I'm not expecting everybody to see my vision. You dig what I'm saying? Because in the end, your vision becomes clearer for yourself as you continue to move forward. So me having the ability to explain to them now what I've been able to discover throughout this road, it would have been impossible. So looking back, I have a lot more understanding about that, and I'm a lot more mature when it comes to that, because there's no resentment in that regards, because in the end, we're always discovering as we go. So you'll never know until you get there. But all I know is my heart was ready to move forward, and those who stuck around, shout out to them, and those who dropped off, shout out to them as well, because they played a very important part in my life during that period, and that's what they were.
Good on you too to say it's not personal. It just is. Trent Shelton talks about how a vision is like prescription glasses. And if you give your prescription glasses to somebody else, they can't see it. It's not theirs. It's not written for them.
Yeah.
It's not for their eyes. It's not for their comprehension. It's not for their understanding. To that kind of wisdom to know that and to say, I see you, I got it, and I'm still going to go my way is really beautiful. And I think it gives
Yeah.
permission to other people to say, no matter what your vision is, Shakespeare wrote it, right? To thy own self be true. Be true to yourself, to people please, and stay in that identity just because that's how people know you is going to crush your soul if you've moved away from it. To music, you were making beats in college. And I think you told me one time that Tom Izzo would yell at you because you were slow. And he said, Mo, are you staying up late with writing beats or something like this? But did you know that music was going to be the next thing? Was that something that you had on your heart as like a lineup of certainty?
Yeah, I mean, without a measure of a doubt, because music was never in my heart second to nothing. You know what I'm saying? Music was always number one for the most part. You know what I'm saying? Basketball was something that was more accessible for me being able to, pretty much maneuver the way I did. Music at the time, it just wasn't it wasn't going to be that one, you know what I mean? But music is a way of life for me. It's not necessarily something that I do, sort of thing. It's just me. It's what I am. So when I was deciding to move forward, I already knew. I'm like, yeah, that was something I was going to, dive head first into, and really explore that world and just see what I was able to get out of it, and see what I can produce from it. And I learned a lot, discovered a lot, worked with some cool people. But music was always going to be the next thing for me. You know what I'm saying? Even today, music is definitely the number one thing for me in terms of creating and creative expression, I would say, easily.
Going back to when you were deciding to leave athletics, at the end of it, what did it feel like emotionally, mentally, and even physically?
Relieved. I felt relieved because for me personally, it got to a point where I didn't feel like I was doing it for myself no more. You know what I'm saying? I remember being a young boy, working on my game, practicing basketball by myself alone. I feel like that was the most spiritual moments for me, you know what I'm saying? Looking back, and, my youth, but once the politics started to get involved, for me, it just felt like it wasn't necessarily for me no more, because I remember going into the game, it was like, it was my vision. It was something that I saw, and it wasn't many people that was actually like on board for it until it got real. And then once it got real, I feel like, everything, changed, So no disrespect to anybody, but family, friends, they all of a sudden they became more like they wanted, let's just say, uh, a say so and whatever moved forward. It just got to a point where it didn't feel like it was just coming from me no more. As if I'm doing this for other people and their expectations and what they feel is right for me, and it just, it didn't feel right no more. So for me, I feel like if it was great to move on and kind of just be free and kind of just move in my own world again.
How did your athletic skills show up in your life now in unexpected ways? Because we know the expected ones, right? Like we know you'll
Yeah,
grind, we know your
yeah.
discipline. What about unexpected ways that you're like, oh yeah, I'm tapping into sports when I do that?
I would definitely say the idea of transitioning, even at Michigan State, all throughout my whole entire basketball experience, I was always considered a great transition player. So the way that translated over to life was flawless, because it's like I'm able to adapt and transition to different situations. It would appear to be flawless, but in the end, I'm able to do it with a lot more grace, just because of the idea of the metaphorically driven idea of being a transition player at Michigan State. It led me to being a transitional coach, and in the NBA, working with rookies, transitioning, and and everything transition. Um, Here we are right now having a show about transitioning. So I believe that that was 100% the most I would say relatable component into the real world, being able to just adapt and shit, make those transitions, because if you can't do it, it's gonna be a rough road for you. Or if you're not even up for the challenge of adapting to new environments, new situations, new people, changing yourself, and whatever form that you need to transform. That's what life is all about, in my opinion. So I feel like that's the greatest component.
I think as we get older too, hopefully we find a little more grace, or at least say, okay, this is what this is, and this is how
Yeah,
I can kind of handle it or not handle it. In the bracket, right? March Madness, it's survive and advance. And I
yeah.
think in life it's adapt and survive, right? Because otherwise, who knows? Who knows, you'll get
Right.
left behind, but you certainly are not, and we talk about this, self-actualize. You're not going to self-actualize if you're not adapting to what is new, and everything is always new. The only constant is change.
Yeah, self-actualization is everything. Self-awareness and being attentive about, different decisions you make and the environments you're in is 100%. One of the greatest ways to actually make smooth transitions and adapt. Because if you operating from a place of, non-consciousness, it's gonna be extremely difficult to handle certain obstacles and stuff like that. So, I feel like every day you get a chance to like create the conditions in the world that you want to live in. Because you're always gonna have different pickles that come up, and but in the end, if you don't have a certain level of patience or just being able to stick to certain things, you're going to always get ate up in this world. But if you're doing it from a vibration of yeah, just what you may call certain willpower is important. I feel like a lot of people don't talk about how important willpower is no more, because you can have all of the mental components in terms of attraction is, but you still have to be able to apply some sort of willpower to it in order for things to actually pan out. And that's been important as well.
You are open about your healing journey and include it in your music. What's one tool, practice, or resource that's made a huge difference in your healing?
I would say detachment, and recognizing that I'm not the body, and recognizing that I'm not necessarily my circumstances. I can identify the circumstance, but I don't have to identify as the circumstance itself. So, our consciousness and our emotional body picks up on these things over time, and you can't escape it. But a great part of my healing journey and being able to overcome things is detaching myself from understanding that this is a human experience. You know what I'm saying? My soul is having this human experience. Therefore, it allows me to be able to release certain circumstances and not be so emotionally attached to them. So that's a practice itself. And it really takes an understanding of who you truly are as a conscious being, as you are a light being. The human is going through these things, and the human is dealing with these things from a standpoint of the central nervous system, the neurons in our brain. That's why it's important to rewire, rewrite, and reprogram yourself so that your body is not sort of responding to the trauma itself, but you get a chance to be the observer of the trauma and recognize that whatever scenario that we've been able to maneuver ourselves through was always there to teach us to transform. So there's no such thing as transformation without transgression. So that's exactly how I'm able to get over it, and then just really spending time with myself and just addressing these issues as they come about, and not numbing myself or just trying to run from it, but just recognizing that, hey, it is what it is. It happened, and our light body and our emotional body is still connected to this idea of this trauma and this pain. And you have to constantly breathe and reaffirm that everything is all good, and recognizing that, oh, here's what I learned from that. That's the step. Like, what did I learn from what this trauma was trying to show me? You know what I mean? Because it doesn't show up for no reason. So if it's showing me something that I need to establish moving forward or let go of, that's what it has to be.
I love that you said consciously grieve. I love that. And I want to steal it.
Yeah.
I want to steal it and I want to
Yeah,
use it. Consciously
for sure.
grieve.
You got it.
Being aware of what you're feeling, which
Yeah,
so
yeah,
often is grief. It's not the actual experience, it's what we make up about the experience, what we make up about
yeah,
ourselves who went through the
yeah.
experience. Powerful, powerful.
Whenever you're feeling these things, they're signals. So your emotions that you feel at times, these are just signals for something you need to pay attention to. Tend to it. You know what I mean? Sit with it for a minute, write it out. Ask yourself questions. Is this something that I need to continue to believe? is this holding me back from moving forward?
And about 90 seconds for that to pass through whatever levels it needs to pass through, but they pass so long as we
Yeah.
feel them. If we don't feel them, they get stored in the body,
Yeah.
and they do come out in physical manifestations such as dis-eases. So
Yeah.
you're speaking gold. I just appreciate you so much.
Assumptions are very dangerous. We have to be very careful with assumptions.
I've said that an assumption says more. If I were to assume something, it says more about me than the other person.
Yeah.
It says
Yeah.
more about what my insecurities are, what my baggage is, what my trauma. It has so much more to do with my mental and emotional state than that other person all
Yep.
day.
Yeah, assumptions for sure, for sure. Like, I mean, those are other. I mean, assumptions are signals as well because I think assumptions come up when there's a, let's just say, perhaps a lack of communication, or if there's a distance between communication. So, say like if somebody you message somebody right, and they don't message you back right away, your mind is going to start assuming things. But here's the growth for me is not allowing the negative to overcharge what can be. Like that person can be busy, whatever it is. You do have a choice to actually be extremely neutral about it, or allow yourself to kind of fall further in the abyss about, oh man, they must be cheating on me, or they must be doing this, they must be doing that, they must be doing that, and then you putting all of that energy into something that may or may not be true. But what's really happening is you're literally, you know what I'm saying, creating more discomfort for yourself because you don't know if it's true or not. So at this point, I'm still working on that too because, like I say, in between the time, it's like, oh, it must be this, it must be that, it must be that, and I'm really mastering the components of just remaining positive. It is what it is. Just stay positive in between those moments.
And the constant discovery, because again, what those beliefs that are coming up, those are telling you what you still get to heal. Right. So
Yeah, for
that
sure.
person
Yeah.
cheating on me. Okay. Well, there's something that's unhealed about a previous relationship where a woman wasn't faithful. Right. It's a signal. It's
Right.
a guidepost. It's a discovery point to go deeper into what is still there to be healed. And healing's such an ebb and flow. People want, I know I certainly want it to be linear, where it's kind of a one and done. My experience is it is not linear. We are not
Nah.
linear. So it's, we heal a little bit, but maybe there's a little bit left, or maybe we thought we healed all of it, but we find it sneaking out somewhere else. So
Hmm.
again, it's awareness, it's that consciousness that shows us where we're at our healing journey, on our spiritual journey. we
Yeah.
we are clued in only all the time based on the thoughts that come up in our mind.
Yeah, that's very true. You know, I feel like it becomes a lot smoother once you're a willing participant in your healing journey and you recognize that the healing journey is an ongoing journey. The self mastery journey is an ongoing journey. As long as you're in this body, you're going to be consistently working on certain things and being able to chip away. And I feel like chipping away is the best thing you can do. Connect dots, chip away, connect dots and chip away. And just going back to what we were saying about the I believe that's a reason why we may experience certain delays in between certain circumstances. That's where you're supposed to really be sustaining positive thinking and being able to see where the blind spots are and being able to plug the certain holes in your thinking and start certain components. People be like, man, I wonder why stuff ain't happening fast enough. Because in the meantime, in between time, where do you allow yourself to vibrate on and the frequency you on? And that's the most important part. And that's a beast. So it's like if you can learn how to really just sustain positive thinking in between those uh those time periods, you just keep leveling up.
There's a lot of faith that goes into it and a lot of trust. And I think that's where most people fall short. And we think that we're ready for something. And, the
Yeah.
higher one knows we're not. I remember I was just thinking about this on my walk today, that I had asked for something 5 years ago and it took 5 years of preparation. That's what those 5 years, it was a delay in my mind. And it was absolutely critical preparation in order to receive today. It took that long.
Yeah.
I wasn't the person to receive it. I wasn't the person to hold it. I
Yeah.
feel like, why would we get something that we can't hold? That's not the purpose. Everything is on time, every time, only every single time. But it's
Yeah.
trust and faith and all those things.
Yeah. I mean, that goes back to I mean, you can use some sports analogies like conditioning. You have to condition yourself to be in whatever environment you choose to be in. Like if you're not necessarily in shape to be the franchise player, if you're not conditioned to be that, you're not going to be that. And therefore, you're not going to get the responsibilities of being a franchise player because you haven't conditioned yourself over time to be that. Instead of like always worrying about where it's at, it's like we should always be focused on the idea of preparing ourselves and bringing ourselves into the conditions of whatever it is we want to, pretty much experience in life.
You've played at the highest level, getting drafted in the first round of the NBA draft. What is your new definition of success?
Being able to just complete things day to day. It's a success for me without having the validations of nobody else. It's literally I don't care about being validated by anything outside of myself no more. And that right there is the greatest success because now I'm not waiting for anyone or any type of recognition. Nobody's applauding me. Like when you're on a self-mastery journey, there's nobody clapping for you. There's no applause for it.
Right.
There's no like button. There's no views. There's none of that. But the fact that you can get up and if you have a to-do list and you check off everything on that to-do list, that's success. And I don't believe the universe measures success based off of what everybody else feels success is. So it's like we have to put our own value on whatever we consider to be success in our own life. And that's freedom to me. It's like now you're not necessarily worried about if they see me, like, nah, you really doing it from an authentic and genuine place. It's like, yeah, I had a successful day. You know what I'm saying? You keep piling more and more success on top of each other, and that's you just living successful. I would say validation for me was important because I always at one point in time I felt like if I have this sort of recognition for my works, it's going to help me expand and my needs to be met.
When we were at Michigan State a long time ago,
Yeah.
Facebook just started. Michigan State was one of the pilot schools. I think they took like 20 schools to pilot it, right? And so it was new. It wasn't not what it is today with Instagram. I think about the kids today with that and looking for validation. We've seen it. Suicide rates are up. It's this, if I'm not getting the likes, then I'm not enough. If I'm not getting the likes, I'm not lovable. I mean, it's like tapping into these very primal wounds for kids whose brains aren't done developing, right? And then the maturation process, you and I have these conversations. We're 41 now. It's a different conversation than what we would have had at 21, 18, 19, it's just a very different world we live in.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure of the cure for it. I'm not sure of the cure of how to help kids beyond saying, hey man, get off social media.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents. Get off of it. It doesn't matter, but they don't hear that.
Nah, they not gonna hear it. Yeah, I mean, most adults. I feel like most adults are. I mean, like we talking about kids. Like, I feel like adults are literally spearheading the whole attention economies. I talked about reward systems, and most people in the world believe that you have to overextend yourself in order to, do for yourself, and in the end, it's just kind of like it's a repetitive cycle, and energy is going out. A lot of energy is being unaccounted for, and it's really it's unhealthy. It is what it is. No other ways around it. So, because what it really does is pull people farther and farther away from themselves.
And even really other people, right? Because that's what they say. The social media is a highlight reel. It's not even, okay, I'll give an example. I'll have somebody call me in an absolute breakdown, tears, breakdown. And within 3 hours, it's nighttime and they're posting how they're living their best life. And I'm like, whoa, this is
seen it way too many times. Oh my God, too many times. Too many times. It's like you was just on the phone going through it. You know what I'm saying? Having a midlife crisis. I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, man, why don't y'all post y'all bad stuff, man? But post y'all down moments. Post when you ain't looking as fly. At least when I was like really like allowing myself to be active on social media, I showed when I was grimy. I showed when I was, you know what I mean? Whatever. I was like, hey, it is what it is.
This is it.
Yeah, I showed up the way I showed up, and I really didn't care, and I still don't. But it's like being able to utilize social media properly is that's a masterclass in itself. But it really does take people understanding how much energy that they're really spending and giving out, and how it's really destroying their inner soul, pretty much, man.
Because you're not in alignment. I mean, listen, I'm a great listener, give solid advice, but I know it takes time to integrate. So don't tell me in 3 hours you've integrated, processed, and now you're good to go. Again, I know I'm great at what I do, but you need to go reflect. The amount of masks that are being created and shown, that concerns me with then how do you come home by yourself and handle yourself? What do you think about yourself when you've spent a day showing nothing but masks and not a touch of who you actually are? That's what is concerning to me from a psychological aspect.
Yeah, I understand how. I mean, it's very difficult to sit with yourself. It's extremely difficult. I don't know. I guess I've had the cheat code for a while because just because I kind of grew up a little bit in solitude, and I had many moments in my life where I was in solitude. I do understand how difficult it is, though. It's challenging for me at times. But I allow myself just to kind of piggyback what you said earlier, though. It's what the major trap is for social media and people mistake a lot of views, a lot of attention, the money that they're getting. They mistake that for alignment. That's where it's dangerous.
Agreed. That's the word right there. Alignment is everything. I saw that a couple years ago. It's like hustle was crossed out and it put alignment. And you know what? Because I've committed myself to alignment, I move differently. I move slower. I'll say that. That's the first thing I noticed. I move slower. I give space to make sure. How does this feel? How does it
That's
feel?
real. Facts.
And it's the stillness, it's the silence. There's a lot of cleanup to do. You and I both have done a lot of healing. So that we've done a lot of cleanup between the ears. If somebody is feeling lost, and even if they're not an athlete, if they're feeling lost or stuck or like they don't know who they are without sports or fill in the blank, what would you say to them right now?
Man, I would say take the opportunity to really just sit with yourself. And most importantly, inspires you outside of sports. Is there anything, and I don't care what it is, it can be the smallest thing. Some people may, because like, once again, if you come out of sports, you always up here with it. It has to be this. But if it's baking cookies, if you're inspired to do that, I guarantee you there's a lane for you for it. You know what I'm saying? There's something for you. There's a niche there for you. I really believe that, taking time to actually sit in that space and seeing what small inspiration that you've always had has always been there. I've never met anybody who doesn't have something else that they're excited about in life. You know what I'm saying? But once again, the perception of it having to be this colossal thing is what drive people away from being able to tap in on some of these made, more humble pursuits. I know this rapper, right? Very famous rapper named Benny Siegel. He used to be signed with Jay-Z. He was up here. But you know what he's doing now? He has a food truck. Yeah, and he's at the most peace he's ever been. He's in Philadelphia. He's doing Philly cheesesteaks. He's building with the community. So it's really up to you to understand that, hey, listen, sometimes it's okay to tap in on something a lot more humbling for yourself, because it may bring a lot more genuine people to you. It might be a lot more authentic. I would say that don't be so judgmental about whatever it is you're inspired to do, and just kind of hone in on that. But like, once again, it definitely takes time to really sit with these things and pull out that notepad. You know what I'm saying? A notepad to save your life. Be right.
Yeah, you journal, right? You journal?
Yeah, I'm always writing, for sure.
Moe, you are the best. I think I tell you on a daily basis, but we'll put it on the air here now.
Appreciate it.
so the world can hear my sentiments for you. Thank you so much for being on. You're the best. This podcast is for those who have experienced feeling lost and uncertain about who they are when the jersey comes off. And my hope is that you are inspired by stories of reinvention and rediscovery of those who have created a life just as meaningful, if not more, than the time spent in a jersey. The game ends, but your story doesn't. And if this moved you, please do not move back in silence. Come, let us be your new team. Thank you for tuning in to Life in Full Send. We will see you next time.
Yeah.